For a good little while now, I have been telling everyone that the secret weapon Republicans have around the country as they head into the November elections is the Democratic bubble. The Democratic bubble exists where the Democrats and most major members of the mainstream media of America, from the newspaper editorialists and columnists to the reporters to the editors and producers, they're all in the same bubble together. They tend to be socially liberal. They tend to be less likely to go to church. If they go to church, it tends to be a more progressive theological congregation. They tend to think the same things about the world, see the world in the same way. They put a lot more trust in the government than the people. And they echo each other. They have the same concerns about abortion. They have the same concerns about Republicans. They deeply despise Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis now as what they perceive as the successor to Donald Trump. And they're in a feedback loop together. They amplify each other. They see things the same way. And very few people are allowed to penetrate the bubble. In fact, they're pretty exclusionary. I was regularly get invited. I had standing monthly invites to go on certain news programs until the moment I said I would vote for Donald Trump for 2020. The moment I said that in 2019, all those invitations dried up. They don't like outsiders in their programming. They don't like outsiders in their pages. They don't like outsiders challenging their groupthink. And the result is that they are more isolated than people on the right. Just think about the argument side of this. I've made this point. I stand by it. I think it's true. And I fear that conservatives are headed in the direction of the left on this in many cases. We on the right tend to understand the arguments of the left better than they understand the arguments of the right. We can articulate their arguments better, more accurately, and more fairly than they can articulate ours, because we are more likely to encounter progressives with whom we disagree politically and still be their friends, where progressives in coastal elite cities are far more likely to only encounter people who think like themselves, act like themselves, worship like themselves, or not worship like themselves, dress like themselves, and have all the same interests. It is essentially a coastal elite of public transportation takers and electric battery-powered car drivers versus pickup truck America. And I think pickup truck America is going to clean the clock of battery-powered driving public transportation using coastal elites. There is no better litmus test for this, a Rorschach test of this, an ink blot test. There is no better test of this than an advertisement that has hit the airwaves in Iowa. Kim Reynolds is the incumbent governor. She is a popular Republican. That state has trended to the GOP, and she has a new ad out. Let me read you this editorial about her ad. I'm going to play you her ad. You're going to see if your reaction to her advertisement matches up to the Kim Reynolds ad. A primary aspiration for the Des Moines Register editorial board and opinion section is to identify and promote solutions for challenges that confront Iowa. Punditry about politicians' campaign commercials doesn't usually meet that bar. But Governor Kim Reynolds' most recent offering is hard to shrug off as just part of the noise. In 10 days since the 30-second commercial was released, its unsubtle message, distinguishing mostly white Iowa from dangerous others, has been denounced over and over in the news media and on social media. We feel compelled to add our voice. The ad is dehumanizing, it's racist, it's embarrassing, it's indefensible. It should be beneath any Iowa elected official. It tells people who look different from most Iowans that, at best, they are indeed different and at worst inferior. Reynolds dismisses the defund the police movement by wondering, has the rest of the country lost its mind? It's as though she believes that's the only plausible justification for such a view. That's what they say. That's what they say about this ad. This ad starts with Kim Reynolds in a diner, coffee shop. She's got a half-eaten muffin. She's holding a cup of coffee. And on TV is St. Louis, Missouri Representative Cori Bush, part of the squad, who says we must defund the police. It shows images of the riots after George Floyd, of them looting small businesses. This is the ad. Again, I need to read you this. This is from the Des Moines Register's editorial board. The ad is dehumanizing. It's racist. It's embarrassing. It's indefensible. It should be beneath any Iowa elected official. It tells people who look different from most Iowans that at best they are indeed different and even worse, inferior. Reynolds dismisses the defund the police movement by wondering, has the rest of the country lost its mind? It's as though she believes that's the only plausible justification for such a view. I'm going to play the ad. I want you to see if you think this ad is dehumanizing, racist, embarrassing, indefensible, and beneath the dignity of elected officials to air.
And defunding the police has to happen.
Watching the news, you wonder, has the rest of the country lost its mind? Attacks on police, open borders, paying people not to work. Aren't you glad you live in Iowa?
Governor Kim Reynolds.
Here we still have common sense. We kept businesses open and kids in school. We cut taxes and support our police. Because in Iowa, America still works.
Really? That ad is supposedly dehumanizing, racist, embarrassing, indefensible, and beneath any Iowa elected official. Because here in Iowa, America still works. That's their reaction to this ad.
And defunding the police has to happen.
Watching the news, you wonder, has the rest of the country lost its mind? Attacks on police, open borders, paying people not to work. Aren't you glad you live in Iowa?
Governor Kim Reynolds.
Here we still have common sense. We kept businesses open and kids in school. We cut taxes and support our police. Because in Iowa, America still works.
Ay, ay, ay. Y'all, what's wrong with that ad?
The only way to do it is
Stop it, YouTube. What's wrong with that ad? That's not a dehumanizing ad. It's not a racist ad. I don't think it's embarrassing. I don't think it's defensible. I think it's very defensible. I think it's exactly a message a governor in Iowa wants. In other states, you've had riots and looting. You've had crime sprees. In other states, you've had kids fall behind because schools got closed down and businesses went under. Kim Reynolds, running for re-election in Iowa, a popular governor, runs an advertisement that's very pro-Iowa, that in Iowa, America still works. We're not rioting. We're not ransacking small businesses. We're not defunding the police. We're not undermining law enforcement. We have law enforcement back. We're not overrun at the border by illegal aliens. Our kids are in school. Our government is working. Our cities are working. Our businesses are working. Our schools are working. Kids are working. It's a good thing. And the editorial board of the Des Moines Register wants to join national outrage and say how awful it is the governor of Iowa is running an ad that is pro-Iowa. This is the disconnect. This is the disconnect that's going to doom the Democrats in November. When the editorial board of the Des Moines Register can watch a pro-Iowa ad by the governor of the state, Kim Reynolds, who points out that in Iowa, schools are open, kids are learning, businesses are growing, and the police are supported, and say it's dehumanizing, racist, embarrassing, and indefensible beneath any Iowa elected official, and that there is a plausible justification for defunding the police, and that because she doesn't think there is one, she's a racist. This tells you everything you need to know about this election cycle. This also tells you why Herschel Walker could potentially still win in Georgia, because this is becoming a nationalized issue. Crime is the closeout issue for the GOP. In the New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico, ABC, NBC, CBS, USA Today, the CNN, MSNBC, they're all lamenting that Republicans are closing out with a crime-based argument, that crime is on the rise, and it's the Democrats' fault because of cashless bail, no bail, let people out of jail, let out the bad guys, don't send them to jail, defund the police, crime is on the rise, the criminal is emboldened, the police officers in retreat and on defensive. Here comes Kim Reynolds saying, this isn't happening in Iowa. We're working. We support the police. We're funding them. And the Des Moines Register calls her racist for doing this. This is not racist. This is a Law and Order good ad. And this is the disconnect I've been telling you about at large, that the media can look at this commercial and say it's racist and dehumanizing when most Iowans are going to look at this, I suspect, and say, this is a good ad. She's got a good point. We're not having the riots. We're not having the looting. We're not having defund the police. Our kids aren't shut out of schools. Our kids are learning. This is good. This is what we want. This is why we live here. And this is why Republicans may still do better in November than people think. Because the Democrats and the media, they share a bubble together. And in that bubble, they've been saying, Joe Biden's going up in popularity. Look at the generic ballot. Abortion's going to save us. Abortion's going to mitigate the damage. We're going to highlight bad Republican candidates. Bad Republican candidates can get elected when it's a wave year because of a nationalized election. And when the editorial board of the largest paper in Iowa attacks the governor for running a pro-Iowa ad and calls an ad that is not racist, is not dehumanizing, is not indefensible, is not embarrassing, and they call it all those things, that editorial board is out of touch. That editorial board has lost the pulse of the people, of the pickup drivers of America. That editorial board may be in touch with the Tesla drivers, but not with the pickup truck drivers. And there are more pickup truck drivers than there are Tesla drivers. There are more people in Iowa who will get in a car today and commute to work than will take public transportation. There are more people in Iowa today who will be looking forward to getting ready for church on Sunday than getting ready for protest on Sunday. There are more people in Iowa today who will see a cop and smile than see a cop and scowl. And there are more people in Iowa today who will be thankful that their kids are in school and not behind, as opposed to having to repeat grades because they fell behind during COVID. Those people do not work at the pages of the Des Moines Register, but they work across all of Iowa. They will reelect Kim Reynolds. And the media will be outraged and will blame the people and call them racist and bigots for voting for a governor who made her state work, who's proudly reminding people how bad it is in some of the surrounding states where the Democrats have taken over, defunded the police, and let everything go to the crapper. And they'll scream racism, and they'll scream bigotry, and they'll scream dehumanizing, and they'll keep losing and not wonder. They won't even have the curiosity as to why. Because they'll know it's you and it's your fault, as opposed to they are out of touch, they've lost the plot, and they're losing.